And I don't agree. I think a lot of things can be fun. So I was the oldest of five children, right? And as the oldest, you were the one that everyone, went to. So I had,
Right.
this role in the family, and being the go-to person was tied to my identity. That's not what surrender means. It means
Hmm.
I surrender, I accept where I am, and I'm open to better and more. It's basically just let go, letting go and trusting that everything will unfold because we're so used to wanting to control the outcome, which is understandable. I retreat and I find myself mm, getting grounded through meditation and prayer.
I am Greg Voisen, host of Inside Personal Growth, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce to you one of our sponsors today, Thais Gibson from the Personal Development School. Now, your personal attachment style is one of the most powerful forces in your life. It shapes your relationship, your self-worth, and your beliefs. What if you had the power to become securely attached? You'd be able to build stronger connections and heal any relationship. Attachment expert Thais Gibson from the Personal Development School has pioneered a transformative, practical approach that will change your relationships forever. The first step, discovering your own attachment style. The free attachment style quiz at the Personal Development School, you can take it in less than 5 minutes and you'll get a personalized report with insights about your patterns, your beliefs, and the next steps to make real change. Don't miss out. Check the show notes below for the link and start your journey today. Well, welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisen, the host of Inside Personal Growth, and joining me from San Mateo, California, is Grace Redman. This is Grace's book, Can I Live? Dare to Go from Effed Up to Fabulous. We can say it, fucked up to fabulous. It's my podcast, so I can say whatever I want. So the reality is, this is the book. We'll put a link to her website as well, which is just www.graceredman.com. And there you can learn more about her and her services and everything else that she offers. Grace is kind of a diverse individual. And Grace, I'm going to let them know a little bit about you because I always think it's important for the listeners to kind of know a tad bit. Um, you know, she's a very dynamic entrepreneur. She's a success coach, obviously, the author of this book, Can I Live? Her work is a testament to the resilience of human spirit. That's really the big one. And I think for my listeners, that's what we'd like for you to get. She offers readers a roadmap to overcome fear, self doubt, and limitations to create a life of purpose and joy. Now, in this episode, we're going to dive into the insights and wisdom behind Can I Live? And exploring Grace's personal journey because look, she's lived this. So she has the right to speak about it. The challenges she faced, the tools she's developed to help others live more authentically and unapologetically. So, for all of you out there, let's get ready, let's get set, and let's have a great interview with Grace Redman. Grace, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure doing the pre-interview with you and then having you here today to really speak with my listeners about Can I Live? And one of the things that's always important, I think, to listeners is like, well, so what's the origins of this book? Right? You wrote a book. For a lot of people, they never write a book, but it is not an easy thing to do. I've done it 3 times and I know. Um, And you start with this powerful force of self-love and transformation. What inspired you really, really, really deeply at heart to write I Can Live and share your journey with so many people when you could have kept silent about it?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. You're so fun. I'm really excited to be here with you. And so I really was inspired and impassioned to share my journey because I didn't realize that so many of us experience that same self-doubt, and most of us live in that prison of our minds. And when I was able to really learn that that's a choice. Yes, my life circumstances happen to me, and I have a choice on how to move forward, how to change the story that I tell myself, how to change the narrative so I can really live a fun and fabulous life. Because I always searched out fun. And I remember one of the, doctors I worked with when I was in college said, Grace, not everything's going to be fun. And I don't agree. I think a lot of things can be fun. So what inspired me was, again, living from a place of self-doubt and criticism and low self-esteem to getting to a point where I felt, confident, and I was waking up each day actually enjoying looking forward to the day, and I had like this, newfound sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and I felt a sense of peace. I was like, I really need to share this because I don't want anyone to live trapped in the prison they create for themselves.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about that prison. What was it? How did you get there? And then what face, you know, look, you faced all these significant challenges and toward your own personal growth. And so what was it like? How did you get into that? And what was the most pivotal moment that shifted your perspective on your life and led you to embrace, and I thought I'm going to say self-love, self-compassion, because if you can't love yourself, it's very hard to love anybody else in the world.
That's
Uh,
right.
and
That's
and look, this is an axiom that everybody should know. Not everybody does know that. They think, oh well, I can beat up on myself and then I can be okay with my kids and my wife. But the reality is you can't.
that's true. That is so true. And our our internal landscape is really a reflection of what's going out on outside of us. So if we have a life full of chaos and drama, that's only an indicator of what's going on inside, which means if I don't have peace outside in my outside world, I don't have peace within myself. And I didn't know that. I was conditioned to believe that if I, would strive for outside success, whatever that may look like. And in my case, it looked like, getting into a great career, um, having a nice home with a nice husband and a nice kids and making that income and having those things, you're going to be successful. And I had all of those things. I created all of those things. And I still felt exhausted. Well, not still. I felt exhausted. I felt disconnected. I felt like something was missing. Like I achieved everything that you told me that I need to achieve on the outside, but I still felt like something was missing.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the personal relationships not being as the way you would like for them to be, whether it was with your husband or with the kids or whatever. And the other thing is going toward that material element that many of us seek that thinks it's going to bring us happiness, the big house, the big car. And it's been said twice to me today by two other podcasters where I thought this was kind of unusual that I got this all in one day. It says, you never see the hearse going down the road with a U-Haul behind it,
That's right.
right? And the reality is that, okay, yeah, all of us have a lot of stuff. We got a lot of shit, right? And it's in our lives and it takes up room and whatever. And I'm not telling people to get rid of it. I'm saying whatever the relationship you have with it, it isn't the thing that's bringing you happiness. And there's a big gap between happiness and success. In other words, you say, oh, well, I'm successful. Okay, great. But are you happy? And you go, no, I'm miserable, but I'm
Right.
successful. Right.
Right.
And so what I'm asking you is, you had this pivotal moment where you understood this. You woke up. You had a Satori experience. You found out I was one with everything. I woke up, the world looked different, right? And I knew there were things I had to do. What is it that Grace did that ultimately ended up in you creating the happiness, regardless of if you had the stuff or not?
That's such a great question, because one of the most pivotal, moments for me was when I went back, because I started coaching side of the business 9 years ago. So I went back to school to get coach certified. And I had a private session with one of my mentors, and I was really upset about something. And he said, "Do you know who the most empowered person in the room is?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "The most empowered person in the room is a person who takes nothing personal." He said, "You're taking everything personal. And because you're taking everything personal, you're staying in a struggle."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, okay. Okay, well, how am I not gonna take it personal?" He said, "Because it's not about you. Step back and get curious. What's really going on in the situation?" And then I started to learn, like, whenever I would get activated or triggered or feel stressed in a situation or interaction with someone, I really did. I started to step back and get curious, which took it, I was internalizing, the interactions, making it mean something about me, making it mean like I wasn't good enough, I wasn't important enough, I wasn't respected enough. And in reality, it really wasn't about me. It was I he taught me how to get curious and, turn the situation and get curious of what might be going on with that other person. So then I stopped internalizing the interactions I was having, making them about me and how I wasn't good enough. And that was really a game changer for me, because my
Yeah.
entire
So
I was taking things personal.
Uh, and we do. And, Don Miguel Ruiz says in his book, basically, don't take anything personally. Easier said than done,
Right.
right? And so my question to you is, in the world of psychology or the world of personal growth, frequently this thing is called the shadow, right? The shadow, and I'm sure you've heard it. What
Yes.
was the shadow that Grace was living with that she was taking personally, or that she felt ashamed of, or was missing? Because this is the pivotal moment for people listening to the podcast as well. It's like we all have these shadows. Frequently, we don't want to let people know what they are, but you did. You wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't going to be that vocal about it. So what would you say yours was? And then what did you do about it besides, as you said in the book, you know, being the person who's just neutral?
Well, you're right. Like, I had to really get honest with myself and bring a light and awareness to my own shadows. And I'm aware that one of my shadows is, I have a fear of rejection and abandonment. And once I understood that, then all of the interactions I was having that would, make me feel some type of way, I recognized that this person, you know, responding to me in that way activated my core wound of feeling rejected and abandoned. So I had these expectations that, these are the things you had to do for me to feel um accepted and seen. So if you didn't meet my like I wouldn't communicate my expectations. I would just think, if you loved me, this is how you would respond to me. And so when I didn't get that response, I would feel, rejected and abandoned, and then I would go into the, you know, the critical of I'm not being good enough.
So where did that come from? If you were to look in history, was it as a child with your parents? Was it as an adolescent with young men who did that to you? Was it in adulthood, or was it a combination of all of those that you finally just made this aha moment that woke up and said, "Hey, I'm better than that. I don't need to have a fear of being rejected. I'm full as I am. I'm a wonderful soul, and I don't need to worry about if people reject me or not." Now that's a big, what, 180, right?
For sure.
But you made that 180, that journey, and it was painful.
It was painful. It was painful, very painful, because, I was the oldest of 5 children, right? And as the oldest, you were the one that everyone, went to. So I had, this role in the family, and being the go-to person was tied to my identity. And so when I started to make the shifts and detach from, the stories I was telling myself to create healthier stories, I had to detach from, my family for a little while for me to be able to really step into just my own person without having myself attached to the role of the oldest child, of the person that's the go-to person, the person that's, gonna do everything for you. And so as a people pleaser and a codependent, to detach from having people need you, that's scary, because that's my worth was attached to being needed, and my worth was attached to how much I achieved.
And, look, I've had some of these same issues myself. You have to stand up for yourself, right?
Absolutely.
There are times, I'm sure, that you were, like, really pissed off because everybody comes to Grace when they got a problem, and I'm the one that has to effing solve it, right? I've got to do something about it. And all I really would like to do right now is have some fun. You said it a minute ago, fun.
Mhm.
It can be fun. It doesn't have to be this burden. So, a theme in your book is gratitude, forgiveness, right? And you found out that gratitude was transformative, but you have to become gratitude. You can't just write in a gratitude journal and say, "I'm grateful." You have to become grateful. Forgiveness is freedom, as you talked about in the book, but it
Yes.
plays a big role in the book. And forgiveness is really forgiving you
Mhm.
for self, and then forgiving others who acted the way they did. Call it self-compassion, call it forgiveness. The you then wrote a story about yourself as a result of that. Um, and you write about breaking free from the limiting beliefs that actually molded themselves around it and the negative narratives. How would you tell the listeners to rewrite their freaking story and tell themselves that they're okay to be themselves?
Well, as children, we have an incredible imagination, and we're carefree and we're fun and we're, very spirited. And so, what I would invite the listeners to do is to really have fun with this exercise, and, definitely get a notebook and sit in a quiet place and pick an area of your life that may not be working for you. And really get honest with yourself. Okay, what are the current stories that you're telling yourself in this area of your life? And then what would the story, like, rewrite the story. If you are the author, what would you want instead? What is your desire? And just play with it and have fun with it. Because honestly, our mind doesn't know the difference between reality and our imagination. And so that's where I say, be childlike and start playing with your imagination like you're a child and dream big. Like whatever, for example, if someone is looking for their dream partner, however, the story they're telling themselves is I'm never going to meet that person. Well, how are you going to meet that person if that's the story you're telling yourself? Well, why don't we start, playing and be imaginative? I am going to meet, my dream person, and this is what they're going to be like. Just play with it. Just use your imagination and start there. Just make it fun.
I think writing it down, like you're prompting people in the book to do, right? Asking self reflective questions, right? Like you help them through in the book. That's important. And that is one of the starting points is to actually start journaling it, writing it down, as you said. Now, one of the things that you talked about in the book was money and self worth, right?
Yes.
Two distinctly different things. Self worth and money are not correlated. You don't have to have money to have self worth. And when you have self worth, you can have it without money. That's what I'm trying to say. But you connected self worth with financial success. Can you share how changing your beliefs about money impacted your life and your success?
Well, I had a belief that I had to really work very hard to earn and deserve, the income that I created, which meant I would burn out, that I was working, very long hours. However, that's not true. I mean, how many of us know many people? We all have the same 24 hours in the day. So it doesn't matter how, hard you work. It's just matters about your beliefs. And so what I didn't also realize was, that money was tied to my self-worth because I felt like I had to earn it to deserve it. That's tied to my worth.
Mhm.
So I
Right.
don't have to, deserve it. I was created in the image of our almighty creator, and he wants us all to be abundant.
Mhm. Mhm. It's interesting to say that because there are some similar patterns between you and me, and I think probably thousands of the listeners out there. I grew up in a household. My mother was Jewish, my father was Catholic, but my mother was the one that really was the influencer. In other words, okay, what did you do for me today? What
Mhm.
did you do today? As a matter of fact, we would have a conversation almost every day and she'd say, how much money did you earn today? Right? Now get that. Here you have a person that's asking you how much money you earned. So until I loved my mother for who she was and said that was okay. That was the way she was brought up. That's not the way I have to believe it. Now, I did believe it for a long time. And really, it still creeps in today until I catch myself because it's a programming, as Joe Dispenza says. Are you going to take the floppy disk out? You can't take the whole floppy disk out. You have to work with it and kind of reprogram it.
Yes.
Um, and your book is as much about reprogramming this stuff as anybody's. Now, you talk about this role of surrender. You write about the power of surrender. So the question might be, in my case, what I was just saying is, am I going to surrender to that? And trusting the universe. That's what you just said a second ago. How can the listeners surrender and have it lead to greater freedom and alignment in their life? Because I can tell you, there are a lot of people hanging on to that stuff that's following in the U-Haul behind the hearse,
Yes. Yes.
right? And in your case, if you were buck naked and didn't have any money, would you still have your self-worth?
Well, absolutely, I would have my self-worth. Now, would I be, excited to be butt naked? And, of course not. Um, However, and that's something I constantly work on, like really grounding myself in my worth and surrendering, meaning just letting go and accepting what is and being open to more. So I used to think that, okay, well, just surrender meant just like what, like, accept it in a way that it's not gonna get better, but that's not what surrender means. It
Mhm.
means, I surrender, I accept where I am, and I'm open to better and more. It's basically just let go, letting go and trusting that everything will unfold because we're so used to wanting to control the outcome, which is understandable, because many of us feel safe when we're, trying to control something, when in reality we really don't have control over very much except on how we respond to situations.
Well, yeah, and I was reminded by a podcast earlier with Dr. Rao this morning. Um, it's an interesting thing. It was, I'm not going to tell the whole story because my listeners can go listen to it, but it's as simple as this. Um, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, right? Meaning like, maybe it was good, maybe it was bad. And the reality is, I don't have control. There's that old prayer that we can, God grant us the ability to understand what we can change and what we can't, right? I paraphrased it wrong. And the reality is that yes, much of what goes on in our life, we do not have control over, right? And we have to accept it for what it is. It's the lessons we learn from it. And this brings up something that you speak about, which is imagination. And
Mhm.
you emphasize the importance of imagination. And I believe that imagination for many people, there used to be a show on, and you might even remember this, and maybe you don't, but Art Linkletter, and he used to say the kids say the damnedest things because Art Linkletter used to interview these kids around their imagination. And it's been said many times by scientists and psychologists that study that right around 5 years old, 6 years old, we lose our imagination. We've now been programmed into a world of complying with what others want from us. How would you recommend people re access that imagination that was always there, but left them because they were playing by the rules of society, of what the culture wanted from them?
I mean, we're constantly using our imagination. If you're at your desk right now and it's almost lunchtime and you're thinking of where you'd like to have lunch or what you'd like to have for lunch, you're using your imagination. And I think maybe sometimes we overthink, things. So if you feel like you've lost, like you said, like we lose the playful imagination, we lose the fun part of it,
The creativity.
the creativity, and where I would, recommend you start if you feel like you've lost that, is start with something, small. Like I said, thinking about what you want to have for lunch, that's using your imagination. And so now thinking about, like I used earlier, what would be your dream, partner? Just thinking thinking about those qualities. That's using your imagination. What would you want your ideal business to look like? Thinking about those principles. That's using your imagination. So we really are using our imagination all of the time, but we may not be using it in a playful, creative way.
Mhm. Well, whether it's imagining a perfect business or a perfect partner or a perfect environment for you to live in, it's good to access that creativity and that curiosity, right? Curiosity relies up here and right in the frontal lobe,
Right.
not over here, right? And so I think that's really important. And your book is going to have an impact on readers if they read the book.
Thank you.
But what do you hope readers will take away from Can I Live? And how do you want it to impact their lives or change or transform their lives for the better?
So I started therapy when I was 19 years old. um, in secret because that was taboo. That's not something that you would do. And I saw that same lady for 25 years. And 10 years ago, when I started my coaching career, I let her know I'm going to become a coach. And she said, I just want to be transparent with you. And I apologize if I offend you. But when I met you when you were 19 years old, I didn't believe that there was any hope left for you.
Mhm.
So, what I would like the audience to take away is regardless of your circumstances, you can absolutely create a life that you love, a fabulous life, a life that you look forward to waking up to every day, regardless of your circumstances.
And I think that's really a mindset and a belief. Yet you have to have a knowing that you can create that. I frequently say, and you probably do as well, beliefs are beliefs. They can change. You can
Yes,
change a belief about something, right?
absolutely.
But if we have a knowing, meaning it's within our heart, it's a big T, it's the big truth for us. We stand on that foundation. That's one of our values. It's like, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is my purpose. And in so doing, you create for the individuals who are reading your book a way out from the quagmires, the challenges, and so on, to something of, and I love the word you used, hope, but hope and imagination for a better future. I think our candidate this year, Kamala, used hope a lot. But she was talking about the hope. Let's have better hope for the future. Let's work together. So you say personal legacy. How do you see your personal growth and the lessons from the book influencing your future projects and goals? Now, this is back to you, Grace. So I know our listeners, hey, it's like, hey, I can pick this book up and read it, and I literally can come away with an inspiration. And I say for many of our listeners and watchers on YouTube, if you take one thing away from this podcast and that helps you change your life and transform it positively, it was worth the 40 minutes listening to Grace and I. So, Grace, this is your opportunity to help people actually find that gem. Where might that gem be in your estimation of all of your travels and journeys and trials and tribulations and life ups and downs and sideways and whatever that you've been through? What is one or two of the nuggets that's like, this is true no matter what for me?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go there. This is true no matter what for me. To be connected to myself and a power greater than me, and whatever each person wants to call it, universe, God, source. So that's huge. For me, it's just being connected to a power greater than me and trusting that no matter what, everything is going to be okay. I know that to be true, 100%. Not only for myself, but I'm just going to go on the live and say it for every person.
Okay.
Be connected
Anything
to a
else?
power greater than you.
I totally understand that. And I hope the listeners really heard you, because if you have a knowing that you're going to be okay, that no matter what is in turmoil around you, right? It's like the tornado, and at the eye of the tornado is this calm, and the outside is all this chaos going on. Many of the people, listeners out there through this last few months have been dealing with all this chaos. You notice that it's come down to a level of calmness at this point. We're not seeing as much chaos because many people were into this divisiveness around the political stance that the country was the division of the country. What I'm hoping and praying for is that people will come together now in some
Abs-
level of unity, regardless. But let's take that on a personal level. Let's say this chaos is going on around us, but we feel like we're in the chaos. What would you tell people to get to the center of the storm so that it's calm?
I mean, I've been dealing with chaos, the last, 14, 12, 14 months outside. Most of us have. And that's why it's been so important for me to find calm in the storm. And the way that I do that is I retreat and I find myself mm, getting grounded through meditation and prayer.
Mm.
I mean, that's
Great.
that's the truth.
I mean, that's all it really, meditation, mindfulness, prayer, whatever it is that actually recharges your engine
Yeah,
is important. So
absolutely. And
you
the God of your understanding.
yeah. Well, you've become a role model for what would be titled resilience and self-discovery, right? And what advice would you give the listener today that's just starting this journey toward living a life of authenticity? They may not even have known they weren't living authentically, but they had this epiphany that to find radical wholeness took this epiphany that they were one with everything, that God isn't separate, that we all are one. God is in everything. I am in God. God is within me. What would you tell people to have that understanding? Because it's a challenging one for people to put their head around.
For sure. For sure. It's a challenging one for people to put their head around. The first thing that I would say that, like, it's okay not to be okay. Like, our message is in the mess. No one is perfect. And when you can just really sit down and get honest with yourself about your life, like, feel into the guilt, feel into the shame, feel into the fear, feel into all of it. Like, put your cards on the table. Like, okay, I am, I did this, and this is where I'm a mess, and my relationships are here. And once you just put it all out there, just get it out. There's nothing that anyone else hasn't been through. Just get honest with yourself, put it out there. Not, just out honest with yourself, and then from there you start rebuilding. That's all it's like, just be honest with yourself, because 'cause you're worthy no matter what, right?
Well, honesty is that's a big one because as you said, we can live in a world of making stuff up and believing what we made up and live up the made up life,
Well,
which is
yeah,
not the authentic life. In other words, it's like look at I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but Byron Katie used to say, and
yeah,
she was on the show, is it true?
that's
Is
right.
it really true?
Mhm.
The question then becomes, hey, people get up in front of the audience with her, and I'm mentioning this because I've been to some of her workshops, and she's been on the show, but she basically said, call somebody up in front of the office. What's going on? I have a horrible relationship. I want to divorce my husband. Oh, okay. So is your husband really that bad? And then she'd say, stop and think, is it true?
Mm,
No, he's really not that bad.
exactly.
Right. And then you say, well, is it really true? No, it's really not true. I mean, whatever. And so she would heal people's relationships right there in the audience as a
Yeah,
result of asking questions
it
about
it
is they true or not. Right.
exactly. I love Byron Katie, and that's so true. Just, is it really that bad? But, we have so much, society tells us there's a certain way that we have to be, and then we internalize, those messages, and if we're not there, or if we made a mistake, or it's just put it out, like, there's again, like, it's okay not to be okay. We're all a mess. Our message is in that moment.
Uh, I love it. Well, you are so authentic, dear. And for all of you out there, this is Grace Redman. This is her book. Whoops. Can I live? Question. You certainly can. She's found out a way to do that and overcome many personal obstacles, professional obstacles as well. Please go pick up the book. Go to graceredman.com. There you can learn more about her coaching services and what she's doing. She also runs a outplaced, was it a placement business?
Yep. Staffing firm, and I have a coaching side of the business too.
So if you reach out to her, check her out there too. But again, go to graceredman.com. Please reach out to her and let her know that you enjoyed the podcast. Also, reach out to her if you're interested in any of her services, and especially if you're in that San Mateo slash area of San Francisco, please reach out to her. Grace, honor having you on.
Thank you.
Namaste to you. Thank you for being
Oh,
on the show and gracing our presence and having us have you as a guest. It was truly wonderful.
thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. It was a gift. I
You're,
appreciate you.
you're quite welcome. Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.